It is 1 minute past 12. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Maryam Mkwanda. South Africa has high numbers of gender-based violence and femicide, and the Muslim community is not excluded from these numbers. It is estimated that 1 in 5 women over the age of 18 have experienced physical violence some way or the other. And with such high numbers, that's why we commemorate 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Um, Joining me on the other side of the stream is Shuhaida Adam, a counselor at Islamic Care Line, to discuss violence in our communities and the causes thereof. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shuhaida, shukran for joining me.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Pleasure to be with you. Can't say it's really a pleasure to discuss this topic. It's quite a serious topic, but it's something that we have to cover. And I would prefer that our communities are very much aware of it. It may not necessarily be happening within your specific home, but I'm so sure that there's some form of GBV happening somewhere that you are familiar with and that you do encounter in some form along your daily life. So I think it's really important that we do cover this.
Speaking of, let's start with first with the commonality. We know that if we didn't have the 16 days of activism, then the violence wouldn't be as common. But it is common. That's why we have this day. So, how common is violence in our communities, especially the Muslim community?
Okay, so unfortunately, I don't have specific statistics, but I do know that out of over 100 cases, marital cases that we see per month, a substantial proportion of it does have some form of gender-based violence. So either emotional, some form of physical, be it financial or sexual abuse. We do have some form of that. What we also noticed an increase is the elderly. There's a special day, special calendar day to commemorate the abuse of the elderly, but I want to include it here as well because domestic violence, the elderly are included, and it's often people who are close to them, so they're caregivers or family members who are either doing some form of physical abuse or neglect on the elderly, the physical care of the elderly, or even financial abuse, just using their pension, using whatever finance they can get, or assigning over assets to themselves. Often this is children or grandchildren of the person, or manipulating the elderly person into switching their will or changing the will with to benefit themselves. So we'll include that also. And that, yes, it's of course it's happening in the Muslim community. The other thing about gender-based violence and why we struggle to get statistics also is still the stigma around GBV. So if we try to look at some form of a survey or trying to do some formal study, we get very little formalized responses. And one of the requirements of doing a formal study so that we can actually give formal statistics is that we need informed consent, we need a representation from the community. So our sample, the people we are asking, they have to be a representative of our communities. And unfortunately, we don't get that much information. So any studies that we do, it's not going to be entirely reflective of the Muslim community. But of course, every month, like I said earlier, out of over 100 cases, we see there's quite a proportion of them that have some form of gender-based violence to their cases.
And what are the factors that contribute to gender-based violence or any form of violence in our community?
Okay, so look, I would start with individual. Then we can look a little bit at the family factors, and then we can actually look at the infrastructure and other community factors around us. So if we look at individuals, some individuals do possess a psychological disorders that gives them a higher propensity to engage in some form of violence. Other people, based on their own family backgrounds, what they grew up with, which was possibly influenced by culture, which was possibly influenced by the previous generation. So the cycle of violence continued. Within our homes, there was parenting that led to perpetrators believing that they are allowed to commit this violence. So having grown up possibly in a home where the father would abuse the mother, oftentimes young men recalling that as the model for marriage, they then implemented it into their own homes. We also have women who support gender-based violence in a way by encouraging also the men around them, for example, encouraging their sons to control their wives, to discipline their wives, that kind of a thing. So we do have family factors. We have people who they don't have relevant coping skills. They haven't developed the individual coping skills, coping with things like rejection, coping with disappointment, accepting no. If your partner tells you she will not do activity A or she will not do behavior B for you, and if you do not have the coping skills to accept that, if you do not have the ability to respect a person's individual autonomy and a person's right to say no, even if you are in a marital relationship, um, within the relationship, each partner still has the right to say, no, I do not want to do that. So a lot of our perpetrators, they're not able to cope with that no. They can't accept that no, the rejection within a relationship also. They then turn to violence. Oftentimes, violence was usually the language they spoke anyway. So any other issues that they had faced with, for example, any problems in school they had faced with, any problems that they had come across in their social interactions, for example, maybe fighting in traffic or someone cut in front of you in the queue and you just want to aggressively respond. So that became a response, and people have carried that over to their relationships. On the other hand, we also have people who outwardly are very calm and peaceful people, and they usually resolve issues in a very effective way. However, when they are in their own relationship, so when they are within the private home environment, they then perpetrate forms of violence. So here we're looking at matters of power and control. So one of the main reasons also why people perpetrate violence on somebody else is to assert a form of power and control over the victim of the violence. And it doesn't have to be physical violence. It can also be emotional violence, or even some form of financial abuse. It's a way of the perpetrator uh, exerting power and control over the person. So we do then find people who have your more certain personality disorders, which then impact on their relationships. They may implement this while controlling their partner, but outwardly they are very effective in coping with daily challenges and coping with their life. So we have that. Just coming a little bit back to parenting also. So how we raise our children, our girl child and our boy child. So often if we raise our boy child to believe that the girl child has to serve him and he's entitled to certain behaviors or certain service, he may then also grow up thinking that this is how it's going to be in his future relationships, and this is what he expects, and he needs to demand it. As our adolescents grow up, they then start learning about social relationships, and they may see people around them, their peers who are in these relationships. They may see that the boy is hitting the girl, or they may hear, their friends may tell them that this is how you, as a man, you control your spouse in the relationship, or you control your girlfriend. It's your right and you are the man. So they get socialized. We're now moving a little bit broader from the family to the community. So their peers who hold also rather damaging paradigms towards violence, they then become influenced by that. And when they are in their own relationships, they may then perpetrate this because this is already now entrenched in their minds. So when we look at the work that we have to do also on community level, we have to shift a lot of the unhealthy thoughts that may also be influenced by culture. And culture gets manipulated, culture gets changed along the way as time goes by. A lot of times people use culture to suit their own personal requirements, their personal, I don't really want to use the word defects, but where they're not really coming right in their relationship, they may then use the term culture. We have many people who use religion, who explain to their spouses why they're abusing them from a religious perspective. And if they are presented with the correct views that I'll use Islam as an example. Islam is, of course, a very peaceful religion. Violence to your spouses it was never part of the religion, and it then got twisted, and people use that. People try to explain it in a way that suits their purposes. So oftentimes, when somebody tries to correct the belief that Islam does not hold any violence, if we use that, perpetrators then will minimize what you're saying or reject what you're saying, and then influence their partner and influence their partner against the truth. Okay, so the true explanation. And that's how we also can, people on a community level can use religion to justify the violent behavior. Then if I look also at just the infrastructure that we have, so if we look at our communities, our socioeconomic opportunities, oftentimes people are struggling, and the socioeconomic disparities cause a power imbalance. We find many women who are struggling on a socioeconomic level. They possibly are not given opportunities to engage in employment, to pursue further studies. There's a lot of factors that influence why a woman possibly she can become dependent on her spouse, on her husband. Childcare, something as simple as childcare. When a couple have a child, and oftentimes the woman is expected to then give up her work and then stay at home, which is, if it's that choice, and if the couple if they can manage that, it's perfectly well. However, many people don't have the ability to then, if she gives up her career for childcare, they then lose an income. So she then becomes dependent on her spouse, and some spouses will then use this dependence to their advantage to assert power and control. And then why? Because she's dependent on her spouse, she may then feel that she can't leave the relationship, and she cannot also then regain her financial independence because she now has no other means of child support. So community childcare, it's contributing factor also to which leads to dependence. The general violence also that we see in our society. South Africa is a rather violent society. So, I mean, we see oftentimes these flare-ups, these weekends where our hospitals are just full up. Our holiday weekends are full of violence, gender-based violence victims are coming through. There's high rape statistics in certain times of the year. So on a community level, our general violence, and if we really unpack it, I'm sure a sociologist would be able to unpack it a lot more. But if we look at the past also, if we look at how our society is so divided, so a lot of times the if we look from apartheid upwards, the inequalities that were entrenched in our societies through apartheid, a lot of it is still there, and the violent mindset is still there. So on a community level, also we have a violence sense in our community, that violence, it works. It may have worked in certain instances in the past. It did, and people it worked for them in the past, so they just want to carry it on. The perpetrators will just carry on using violence because for them it works. And then if you look also at our safety and security, our sense of safety and security in our communities is very minimal. So oftentimes when people are under attack, when a victim of GBV, she's under attack, she feels that there is no mechanism for safety for her. If she goes to the police, she often feels that the police will not be able to support her in any way. They may support the perpetrator, or they do not give her the type of services that she requires. And I think keeping up with just daily news, we see many stories where unfortunately SAPS also does not assist the victim in some way or the other. Either they're under-resourced or under-trained, or there's just general confusion, and there's just the perpetrator generally, they may actually feel that they get supported by SAPS, and the victim may feel then that she's not believed and she's not getting her support. So she then feels that there's nothing she can do to put a stop to this violence. So that's just in terms of safety and security. And then our justice system also. A lot of women feel let down by the justice system. A lot of the victims, not necessarily, I must just make a correction here. It's not only women who experience gender-based violence. There are men who experience it, but because the greater majority of people who experience GBV are women. We just refer to women as the victims, but bearing in mind that men also do experience this. So a lot of the people, coming back now to the justice system, a lot of the people who go through it, they become quite disillusioned by the long process, the very, very specific requirements to go through with the case. So I'm not a lawyer, but just from what our experience is, there's very technical terms that people have to use in law. Oftentimes, the perpetrator, when they defend themselves, they do, of course, they have a right to defend themselves as is put into our constitution. So when they do defend themselves, then a lot of the victims, they're not fully prepared for the defense that they face. So they too become disillusioned by the justice system, and they may then just not reach out for help.
All right, so Shuhaida, let us take a quick break and we will continue thereafter.
Camps in Syria or orphanages in Yemen, the eyes of the needy speak volumes with just one glare. We know what it's like to be at ground zero, with food essentials, clothing and blankets, fresh water portal trucks, and even on-site navigators. We use every cent to better their tomorrow. Become part of our journey to bring relief to all. Go to www.ashrafulaid.org or call us on 011 809 8181. Ashraful Aid, under the auspices of Maulana Suhail Wadi.
Looking to get your kick? Kiki's have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiwa Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grills, mocktails, milkshakes, and so much more. Corporate and events catering available. Visit our social media pages for more info or call 031 209 0119. Kiki's, the Taste with Kick.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
What makes Randery Jewelers the optimum place for your memorable gift? Is it our range of exclusive, high-end, luxurious jewelry? Or is it our master craftsmanship of all your bespoke jewelry needs? We believe it's because at Randery Jewelers, we know just how to make your special moments last forever. Whether it's for a wedding, anniversary, or just a simple gift to show your love, trust Randery Jewelers to make it special. www.randeryjewelers.com. Make your moments last forever with Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Little bare feet on the icy wet ground, a shiver at his lips, mud on his clothes. When he is cold, the hunger is worse, the nights are longer, and the pain is more severe. What if this was your child? The Al-Imdad Foundation's Global Winter Appeal allows you to make a difference for refugees, IDPs, and struggling communities in 21 countries globally. Sponsor a winter pack today for just 600 Rand. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243.
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity.
12:20, you are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Maryam Mkwanda. Please excuse me. Oh, I just I just had a nasal situation over there. We are talking about violence in our communities and the causes thereof with the Shuhaida Adam, a counselor at Islamic Care Line. Shuhaida, shukran for staying with us. Now, before I forget, quickly tell us about the hike that will be taking place tomorrow, hosted by Islamic Care Line.
Yes, we're hosting a hike at the Klip Rivier Nature Reserve, um, just aiming to break the silence, and we will be having a program afterwards. So, of course, the hike is just a recreational element to it, but also highlighting how we have to take steps to eradicate the violence from our communities, from our homes. So if you think of a hike also, I mean, you follow a trail, you have to do step by step. Sometimes those steps are not so easy. If it's a bit steep or you have to climb over a bridge or something along those lines. So it's just symbolic for us also that the steps that we take to eradicate the GBV, um, there's going to be some easy parts and there's going to be very difficult parts, but also together we can make the difference. So where there's difficult parts, because we're going to be doing it in a group, we expect to support each other, helping each other over the difficult sections. We chose a bit of an easy route, so it's not entirely difficult, but where some people may struggle, the support is the key there, symbolic also. And then afterwards, we're going to do a little bit of self-care, because we think it's so important also. People who have experienced some form of GBV, or they're living in it, oftentimes self-care is the furthest thing from their mind. So it's quite critical that self-care, it can benefit you greatly and help you cope with the difficulties that you are going through. And a little bit of empowerment. So we want to share a bit of information with our group. It's just to empower people, and hopefully through the people who attend here, even if they're not experiencing some form of GBV, they can then go forward. And if one person can reach out to somebody who is experiencing some form of abuse and reach out and just share a bit of what they've learned in the day, a little bit of the resources that we're going to be giving out tomorrow, we hope, inshallah, it will make a difference.
I mean, I'm sure it will make a difference, especially how you have described, the symbolism around it. And also, we have to put in the hard work. You have to walk that trail. You need to put in the hard work. So put on your running shoes, your walking shoes, and go for it. Now, back to our topic of discussion. How can we all do, or rather, what can we all do to help eradicate violence in our communities?
Okay, so look, we do all play a part. And let's start again from the smaller family units. If there's already some form of violence in the home, perpetrators, please reach out. There is help for perpetrators out there, some form of counseling, self-development to help you cope with whatever it is that's behind the perpetration of the violence towards your partner, or the control, the manipulation, etc., all the harmful behaviors towards your partner. So I'll start off with that. Reach out, and through one person, one perpetrator reaching out, we will then start breaking that cycle. If one person can stop, hopefully then their family members that they influence will also then stop it. So I think it's critical also to seek help as the perpetrators, the mental health care. So children who have been through difficulty, through trauma, who live in violent situations, they need extra support. And they can then reach out for some form of mental health care. Something like play therapy can really help children who are struggling with their own emotion, with their own behavior control. That can really help them. And then even within our families. So we know, of course, that there's quite a bit of family breakdown. There are many children who are living with a single parent. A lot of children don't have access to their fathers, or their fathers have not passed on. So we want men to reach out to young boys who are in need of a father figure. Okay, it can be a nephew, it can be the neighbor, it can be a distant relative, reaching out to our boy child, and helping him in his development. Just being a confidant towards him, helping him cope with the difficult challenges that he will be going through, especially as he gets older. Building significant relationships with boy children, and then supporting them through their adolescent challenges. Because one study I read has found that the boy child, if he doesn't have significant support, he is then a lot more vulnerable to perpetrating violence, and then other difficulties also, like dropping out of school, substance abuse, risky sexual behavior, etc. So reaching out to boys in some way. If you are a father and you have a son, do something significant. Try to form a significant relationship with your son. It will make the world of a difference to your son's development. Because oftentimes we have many fathers who are there, they are providing, but there's not a close relationship with their son. They feel that they cannot connect with them. So if you are a present father, please try to be an engaged father. Okay, and then also just in terms of how we raise our young women, also help empower them, try as best as we can to empower our girl child so that she doesn't, when she's finding vulnerable situations, she is able to overcome it and help develop her resilience also. Then on a community level, just try to support where we can in terms of organizations who are trying to act against GBV, so activists, people who are mobilizing, empowering our support staff. So at, let's say for our example, our SAPS, our local SAP center, becoming involved. You as a community member, you have every right to be a part of the local SAPS in some meaningful way. So every SAPS has to have a victim empowerment center. If there's some way you can assist the Victim Empowerment Center, perhaps through fundraisers, through volunteering, getting some training in terms of working with people of GBV people, getting some training in volunteering your time, so supporting our organizations. And then encouraging people who have experienced GBV and are looking for some form of support, either through the legal system, helping them through that. So people who are lawyers, offering some of your time, even if it's just free advice on how to guide this person to obtain a protection order or how to open up a case. So things like that, trying to get as much information as possible, volunteering time, because we really have to do this together. Supporting each other together, and no matter what level you find yourself on. So even if you are on a very high policy level, in parliament or on government level, also just trying to volunteer your time with people on the ground so that we can make a difference from the ground up. And of course, when the work on the ground is what is actually supposed to inform what's happening on policy level. Parliament is supposed to be enacting laws that are very relevant to your everyday person. So people, whatever level you find yourself on, to just try and please give some time and support for that. And supporting also on a community level, access to recreational activities, coming together and making something like a sports tournament or some recreation for our young people so that they can feel connected to their communities, and there's a sense of togetherness and respect for people and respect for our basic human rights. And then just ongoing self-development and empowerment for ourselves and our family members and the people that we influence.
Right, Shuhaida, shukran so much for your time. And just to add on to what you said, this is a fight, a daily fight. It's not just for 16 days, it's more 5 days. And every day something happens to someone, whether it's a man or woman, whether it's a child or an older person. But it's something that we have to focus on daily, not just during the 16 days of activism. And I hope that we can all put in the work so that we can eradicate this violence that we have in our country. Shukran so much for your time once again, and good luck with tomorrow.
Shukran, Jazakallah for the support. And if anyone needs to contact us for any further information, our number is 011 373 8080.
All right, shukran. The numbers participate in tomorrow. It is at 12:30. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media. We will be right back.